Hi guys, this is Leo from Quotes and Posters, and today I'm going to talk about this quote here, which is your biggest risk is not taking any. Right, this quote here, I don't know who actually wrote this quote, but Peter Thiel, I believe I took this quote from something that Mark Zuckerberg once said in an interview. I think he was getting interviewed by this guy called Sam Altman, which is like one of these. He was a CEO of Y Combinator, and that he was interviewing Mark Zuckerberg, if I'm not mistaken. And then Mark Zuckerberg said that he took this idea from Peter Thiel, which was an early investor in Facebook. That is basically today, with today's world, with the pace that things are changing so fast in the world that we're living today, actually doing nothing is the biggest risk, which is something really, really smart. Like if you think about Peter Thiel is a genius. And Peter Thiel is interesting because he's not a very public figure, I believe. I don't know, but not to a certain extent. Like he doesn't like do podcasts and this kind of things. Not that I know, but he's a very brilliant person in the Silicon Valley and the tech industry. Very brilliant, smart person, and. It's really interesting to think about that actually in today's world you have to take risks, and if you're doing nothing, that is your biggest risk, because of course world today is changing so fast compared to previous to previous decades, like for example in the 60s and in the 70s. Technology were not evolving in the same speed that it is today, and I'm very amazed by how fast things are actually growing and things are progressing and developing. And technology is interesting because technology grows at an exponential rate. So computer, we used to have, like, look at the iPhone that was the first iPhone that was I think launched around 10 years ago. Look at it and look at how incredible, how much it evolved since then, right? Like it's really, really incredible how technology grows and evolves fast. And so you can imagine what's gonna be in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years in terms of technology, how our lives are gonna be impacted. And also you can think about how many jobs are gonna be impacted in 5 to 10 years because of that, right? So in that sense, I think Peter Thiel is completely right about saying that what you gotta do in life in today's world is to take risks, right? Because if you do nothing, there's a great chance that someone else is going to. There's a great chance that you're going to become obsolete, because industries change. So And it's so interesting because you never know what's gonna happen in the future. So you cannot be 100% sure that your industry or the thing that you're doing is going to last, or even though it might last. For example, let's say you are in the food industry, right? And obviously you know that people are always going to eat, right? People will always need food. But do you really know about it? What if they invent some pills that gets all of your nutrients into pill forms or into like these shake forms or whatever, and then it's much cheaper than actually normal food, and then this kind of disrupts the market, and people now are only consuming this kind of food, right? Like, for example, that. Or another example, like another industry that can get disrupted. For example, imagine you're a drug dealer and you're like selling, you make your profits out of selling coke, and then imagine that suddenly governments, they just realize that it's better to actually legalize everything because it's gonna diminish the crime rates and all the things. So it's better to educate the people about how bad these drugs are and legalize that. Or imagine that coffee, for example. Imagine that you are in the coffee business and then suddenly everybody realizes that caffeine is a drug. And then now there's a huge conscience of people that you shouldn't consume caffeine. Or imagine that government starts to make caffeine illegal. So imagine that caffeine suddenly becomes a drug. So basically, my point I'm trying to say here is that we never know about the future. We never know what's gonna be, right? We never know that if we're going to have smartphones in the 5 years, or if some company is going to develop something else that is really going to disrupt the market. And then suddenly, for example, I'm a designer, and I design digital products. I design apps and platforms, right? So imagine that they change. Imagine that everything now becomes a VR experience, and then imagine that in the next 5 years, you're not gonna have like your iPhone anymore. You're just going to have a glass, and everybody's gonna wear a glass that is gonna be VR. It's gonna be like a VR glass that it's going to bring you interfaces that are totally connected to the world that you are living, right? So you're gonna have a glass with a camera that sees and observes things, and then suddenly you are able to manipulate those things, right? And you are able to bring interfaces into these things. So that's just one idea about something that could be in the next 5 years. And then me, who is now I'm used to creating designs for screens, that will be a huge shift for what I'm doing. And I'm gonna have to actually learn these things. So I have to be in a work. I have to be working into a structure that really supports development and really supports growth, and that really sets me some time to take risks, to actually experiment and failing. So that's something also about this quote, that taking risks, in order for you to take risks in life, you need to experiment. You cannot take risks if you don't experiment. So you got to be able to actually try different things, try method A, method B, method C, and see which things are actually making sense and which things are working or not. That's the only way that you take risks in life, and that you're going to be able to actually succeed on something, right? Because if you don't experiment, you're not taking risks, and you're not progressing, and then eventually that's going to happen. Something, then the world will change, because the world doesn't ask you for any permission to change, and you're going to be left out, right? That's what I think about risks. So you shouldn't be afraid of changes, right? And it's interesting because you see that whenever some new technology comes, there's always this group of people who are obviously who are gonna fight against these things, because this technology is taking their jobs and it's taking their markets. There's always gonna be opposition, right? Because this is also related to a quote that I was talking a couple of days ago, which is a quote by Winston Churchill saying, having haters means that you stood up for something, right? So when a new technology comes and disrupts a specific market, it brings a lot of haters with it, right? So for example, when Uber came, many countries, many governments, and many people who were working in the transportation industry, like taxi drivers, they just suddenly they just started to protest, and they started to go to protest with the governments, and the governments actually they had to regulate these things. The government eventually has to put the hands and regulate these new technologies, because these technologies, they suddenly like disrupt everything. And honestly, man, talking about the taxi industry and the taxi drivers, I mean, from my personal perspective, it's a terrible industry, because everywhere in the world, I don't know about you, but at least for me, taxi drivers, they behave like you are working for them, and not the way around. So for example, a taxi driver would, especially these taxi drivers that try to cheat on you on the airport, and it's never regulated. They never give you like a fair fair price, or they never work with the meter where they're supposed to. So taxi drivers are very weird, and it's very difficult kind of a segment in the industry. And Uber came to kind of solve this problem, And then obviously all the taxi drivers, obviously they were very angry with it, and then they actually asked the government to interfere and do something about it, because obviously also the government is not getting any share out of the game, right? So because the governments also want their share of everything that you do, right? So yeah. Well, the reason why I'm saying this is that these things, you cannot stop technology. There's no way you're going to stop, because technology impacts people, and there's no way you can stop people, because in the end of the day, the power, it is and will always be in the hands of people, because people, even though you think that millionaires, I think like Jeff Bezos has the power or Donald Trump has the power, well, they don't, because they only exist because the people like me and you that decides to take or decides to pay or consume a certain service or a certain technology, right? So I'm always gonna believe in the power of people. And I really believe that technology is something that is there for the people, and it's something that technology will always will always be move forward only because of the people, right? So in that sense, whenever you see new technology coming, or when you see a new trend of something that is happening in the world coming, for example, I believe now that the next big trend is VR. I truly believe in this, and I think there's going to be, and also another big trend is the crypto coins and cryptocurrencies and blockchains, right? So these are some things that will inevitably rise in the future, but we really don't know when. But I believe that if you want to really be successful in the near future, you have to be really smart and you have to be really aware. You have to be ahead of the curve. You have to be aware of what's happening in the world in terms of changes, in terms of technology, so you can surf a particular wave, right? So I really believe now there are tremendous opportunities in the blockchain, and maybe it's a little bit saturated also at this point, because I've seen so many blockchain and cryptocurrency companies and startups. It's kind of maybe we're living like the gold rush of the cryptocurrencies maybe now, or maybe, but you never know, maybe that's going to yet happen. But rest assured that today, right now, there are multiple of things happening in the world and multiple events that are chances and opportunities for you to be part of and grow with it, right? So this is something that very few people actually are able to realize and are able to grasp, that today in the world there are movements, there are things happening, there are trends happening. For example, you can you can say YouTube, for example, okay, right, or TikTok, or you can go even like you can expand more. You can say like a video like Twitch, for example. There are people like content people creating content that are paid content for content creators or whatever. Or you have like cryptocurrencies, or you have blockchain, or you have now, for example, there was a pandemic that happened, so many people who were investing in companies like Zoom, for example, they became very rich. Like if you had stocks on Zoom, for example, you would have grown your finances, your money on that. So you gotta be actually you really have to read news every day to grasp what's happening in the world right now, and where you could actually invest not only your money, but where you could actually invest your time and take the risk, like this quote say. You have to choose where you're going to take the risk, and I would advise you to not choose only one thing, but choose a couple of things where you're going to actually where you can see the potential of growth on that thing, and you see that there's a huge potential in the future for that thing to grow, right? For example, yes, something I was going to say, which I guess is related to this project that I'm doing. I really believe now today there's a movement, I believe, in the world today of self-help. There was always been like there has always been like a self-help movement, but I think today, because of social media, I think a lot of people, and the rise of YouTube and the rise of this Instagram, YouTube, and now TikTok, Snapchat, all these social media platforms, people, I have seen a big rise in people giving advice, or people like me doing these videos and talking about self-help and everything. So I think that's why that's not the reason particularly why I started this project, but it's one of the reasons I kind of started is to actually help myself, because I'm also someone constantly in need of helping myself, and I'm someone that is constantly in need of good advice and of knowledge. I'm always in need of good knowledge and good advice and motivation and self-help, and that's one of the reasons that actually I started this project here, to help myself, to heal myself from these wounds, I would say, from the difficulties that I had in my life. And I think that there's a constant trend now. I see a pattern and a trend, and I really don't know if this trend is going to continue, but I definitely see that there is a trend in the world of self-help and people consuming this kind of content, be it in videos, or be it in books, or being on seminars and this kind of things, or maybe on posters. So maybe, because I see a lot of people, and that's something that I wanted to do also for myself, because I see a lot of posters with quotes, which I didn't like the design, and I wanted to design something that I liked for myself and that potentially other people would like. So I see that many people, they have quotes, they have posters with quotes, or many people also tattoo their quotes on their arms, right? So I think that it's a trend, and maybe something that is going to grow a lot in the future, and that's why I decided to unite the things that I love to do, which is design, and the things that I need for my life, which is knowledge and to become a better person. Unite all these things and create a project like this to actually help the world, based also on this trend that I see that is growing a lot, and I believe there's a potential to grow. So maybe this is something related to it. I'm kind of taking a risk doing this project, because I'm not getting any money from it. Actually, I'm just wasting I'm investing a huge amount of my time on it, and I'm 35 years old, so it's not like I'm not young. So my time, if I take all this time that I'm doing this project and I would actually do some design work, I would be getting a lot of money from it. But I'm really doing this mostly out of passion, but also with this idea in mind that I'm just planting the seed. I'm taking the risk into something that I believe that is going to grow in the future. I'm taking the risk, and who knows? Maybe I'm gonna be right, or maybe I'm gonna be wrong. But I'm never going to regret taking this risk, because as this quote says, your biggest risk is not taking any. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed this video, and please like the project, subscribe, and hit the comments if you have any question or any opinion or any idea, because I really want to start a discussion, and I'm really open to it. I'm really going to dedicate my time to it. Okay, so see you again. Bye.